We continue now at the top of Daf Chaf Beis Amud Aleph in Meseches Kiddushin. This is Kiddushin Daf 22a. The Gemara continues bringing the brisa that discusses the halach of Yefas Toar, that when a soldier sees a beautiful woman during a war, he can take her. And the brisa uses an analogy to eating meat. It says that it's preferable for Klal Yisrael that they should eat from temusos, shchutos, from animals that are dying, but at least they're shechted, at least they're slaughtered properly. V'al yochlu basar temusos nevelos, and they shouldn't eat the meat of animals that are dying, but they're nevelos, meaning to say they're carcasses. They were not slaughtered properly. And the point over here is that the reason for the halach of Yefas Toar is that at least it should be done in a somewhat permissible manner. And the pasuk continues by Yefas Toar, v'chashakta, you desire her, afal pi she'eina noah. The point is, even if she's not beautiful, it's subjective. If the soldier desires her, then the halacha applies. And it says, ba v'chashakta ba, you will desire her, v'lo ba ubechaverta, not her and her friend, meaning you can take one Yefas Toar, you can't take two Yefas Toars. V'lakachta, and then it says you will take her, likuchen yesh l'cha ba. The point is that there is Kiddushin, you can have an actual Kiddushin, and the Kiddushin can be chal in this situation. Rashi says, likuchen yesh l'cha ba, Kiddushin tovsin, meaning Kiddushin can take effect. V'yafal pi shehaisa ovedes kochavim, even though she was a non-Jew, she was an idol worshiper, sharei ena miskayeres midai, to the point over here is, she's not converting willingly, but nevertheless, it's considered to be likuchen, it's considered to be a marriage. And then it says in the pasuk, lecha leisha shelo yikach shtei nashim. It says you take for yourself a wife, that you shouldn't take two of them, achas lo v'achas la'av, meaning you shouldn't take one, he shouldn't take one for himself and one for his father, or achas lo v'achas livno, or one for himself or one for his son. And then it says in the pasuk v'havesa that he brings her, that you're going to bring her into your house. Malamet shelo yilchatzena b'milchama. That teaches us that he shouldn't pressure her to have relations during the war. He has to actually bring her home first. Rashi says, l'cha v'lo la'acherim, again, it's for you, not for others. Shelo yikochenu letzorech acherim kagon aviv. He can't take her for other people like his father. Shelo yilchatzena b'milchama lavo elah. He shouldn't pressure her during the war to have relations with her again. V'havesa, he has to bring her to his house. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught him, Amor Yomar, if the Eved, this is talking about the Eved Ivri, if he will surely say that I love my master, I love my wife, I love my children, and I don't want to go out free, so then the pasuk goes on to say that we pierce his ear, and he continues to be an Eved Ivri. And the Brisa darshans that she Yomar v'yishne, from this double language of him, Amor Yomar, we understand that to mean that he has to say it and he has to repeat it, meaning to say he has to say 2 times that he wants to continue his avdus. Amar b'tchilas sheish, v'lo amar b'sof sheish. Let's say he says it at the beginning of the 6 years, but he doesn't say it at the end of the 6 years. Eino nirtza, in that case his ear is not pierced. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, lo eitzei chavshi, he says I don't want to go out free. Ad sheyomar b'shas yitzia. We understand from lo eitzei chavshi that he has to make this statement b'sof sheish. He has to make it at the time that he's going to go free. Amar b'sof sheish, let's say he says it at the end of the 6 years, v'lo amar b'tchilas sheish, and he doesn't say it at the beginning of the 6 years. Eino nirtza, in that case also he's not pierced. Shenemar, as it says, im amor yomar ha'eved, it says the eved will surely say, ad sheyomar kishu eved, he has to make the statement while he's an eved. At the end of the 6 years already, he's no longer an eved, so that's how we understand that he has to make the statement both at the beginning and at the end. And the Gemara will now clarify what does that mean exactly, the beginning and the end. Amar Mar, the master said, we just said above, Amar b'tchilas sheish v'lo amar b'sof sheish. If he says it at the beginning of the 6 years and he doesn't say it at the end of the 6 years, eino nirtza, his ear is not pierced. Shenemar, as it says, lo eitzei chavshi, that I'm not going to go out free, and we understand that means that we're talking about the shas yitzia. And the Gemara says, "My irya mi lo eitzei chavshi." What is the need to bring it from the pasuk of lo eitzei chavshi? There's a different reason. There's a different source. Typically, we should learn it from the following: Deba'ino nahafti es adoni es ishti v'es banai, because the pasuk says that he has to make the statement that I love my master, I love my wife, I love my children. And at the beginning of the 6 years, Veleka, he doesn't have a wife and children yet, so that pasuk makes it clear, makes it obvious that he has to say it at the end of the 6 years. V'suin, further analyzing the brisa, Amar b'sof sheish v'lo amar b'tchilas sheish. It said that if he says it at the end of the 6 years and he doesn't say it at the beginning of the 6 years, eino nirtzi, is not pierced. Shenamar, like it says ha'eved. It says that it has to be the eved, and the point is that at the end of the 6 years he's not an eved. Atu sof sheish lav eved. Is that true that at the end of the 6 years he's not an eved? He's still an eved. It's just towards the end of the avdus. And so the Gemara explains, Amar Rava says, B'tchilas pruta achrona, b'sof pruta achrona. What do we mean to say when we say at the beginning? We mean to say at the beginning of the last pruta of service. And what do we mean to say when we say the end? We mean at the end, so to speak, of the last pruta, when he's already begun his last pruta, there's not even a pruta of service left. And the point over here is that the beginning doesn't really mean the beginning of the 6 years. It just means at a point in time he's still called an Eved. When is he still called an Eved? When there's still a pruta, at least a pruta of work left to do. And when is he considered to be at the end? That's when he's no longer an Eved in the technical sense, because there's no longer a pruta of service that is left to do. Rashi explains, V'hachi perusho, called tchilas sheish dekatani, when we talk about the beginning of the 6 years, k'shemagia lahaschi l'sof pruta achrona l'fi cheshben girona, sha'adayin olav shava pruta. The point is, he still has a pruta of service left, to have a dmei eved. That's the value of service, that's the value of an eved, that's called tchilas sheish. When he's already begun that last prut of service, that's called the end. The lav evidu, at that point he's not really called an evid, dein olav shava pruta, because the point is there's not a prut of value left in terms of the work he's going to do. And so this is what it means. Amar betchila shesh kodem pruta achron. If he says it before that last pruta, techvar yeshlo isha ubanim. Now he already has a wife and kids at that point in time. Velo besov shesh, but he doesn't make the statement at the end of 6, meaning laachar shehischil pruta achron. After he's begun the last pruta, eino nirtza. There's no, he's not pierced in that case. Ve'afilu amar v'shana. Even if he repeated it, but if he didn't say it besov shesh, that's a problem. Techsiv loetze chavshi samach liyitzia. That we learn out from loetze chavshi. It has to be near the time that he's exiting. V'chozman sheyesh alav pruta shleima lav samach liyitzia. As long as there's still a pruta of work left to do, that's not called near the time of going free. Yomar v'shana besov pruta achrona. Now let's say he says it twice at the end of the last pruta. V'lo amar b'tchilas pruta achrona, but he doesn't say it at the beginning of the last pruta. Eino nirtza. He's also not nirtza. Shenemar im yomar ha'eved at sheyomar kashu eved. It says he has to say it as an eved, and again he's only considered an eved if he still has at least a pruta of work left to do. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Lo isha ubanim u'lerabo ein isha ubanim. Let's say he, the Eved Ivri, has a wife and children, and the master does not have a wife and children. Eino nirtza, he's not pierced in that case. Shenemar, like it says in the pasuk, Ki ahevcha v'yes beisach. He says, I love you and I love your household. The master has to have a household. L'rabo isha ubanim. Let's say the other way around. The master has a wife and children. V'lo ein isha ubanim, and he doesn't have a wife and children. Eino nirtza, he's also not nirtza. Shenemar, as it says, Ahavti es Adoni as ishti v'es bana. It says, I love my master, my wife, my children. So it shows that he has to have a wife and children. Hu oeves rabo v'rabo eno ohavo. He loves his master, but his master doesn't love him. Eino nirtza, he's not pierced in that case. Shenemar, as it says, ki tov lo imach. He has to be good with you. So that means they're good together. The master has to love him. Ravo ohava. Let's say the master loves him. V'hu eno oheves rabo, but he doesn't love his master. Eino nirtza. In that case also, he's not nirtza. Shenemar, like it says in the pasuk, ki ahevcha, because I love you. And so therefore, again, you learn from there that the Eved has to love his master. Hu chola v'rabo eno chola. Let's say he's sick and his master is not sick. Eno nirtza, he's not pierced. Shenemar, as it says, ki tov lo imach, that he is good with you. And the other way around also, rabo chola v'hu eno chola. Let's say his master is sick and he's not sick. Eno nirtza, he's not nirtza there either. Shenemar imach, with you. It means tov lo imach, with you. It means both of them have to be healthy. The Gemara says, boy Rav Bevi bar Abaye. Rav Bevi bar Abaye asks, shnehem cholim mai. What if they're both sick? Imach ba'inan, so it has to be with you. We have to be in the same state. So now we're both sick, so that would be fine. V'ha'ika, you fulfilled that pasuk. Odilmor maybe ki tov lo imach. It means that he's good with you, meaning that they both have to be in a good state. They both have to be well. Ba'inan, that's what's required. V'ha'lekan, we don't have that in this case if they're both sick. And the Gemara says to that take, the Gemara leaves that as a question. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, ki tov lo imach, because he's good with you. And we understand from there, imach b'maichel, he's with you in food, meaning he's with the master in terms of food. Imach b'mishta, he's with you in terms of drink. The idea is that you, the master, should not eat good bread, quality bread, and that he's eating inferior bread. That you're drinking old wine, good wine, and he's drinking new wine, that's the inferior wine. You're sleeping on comfortable linens, and he's sleeping on straw. All of that is not allowed. From here they say, anybody who acquires an Eved Ivri, it's like acquiring a master for himself. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, V'yotza me'ima chu uvanav imo. It says that if the Eved Ivri comes in and he has a wife and children, so he leaves you, he and his children together with him. Amar Rabbi Shimon says, Imhu nimkar, if he was sold as an Eved Ivri, Banav uvanosav minim karim, were his sons and his daughters, were they sold? Why are they leaving the Avdus? They never were Avadim. And so he says, Mikan, from here we learn, Sharabo chayiv b'mizonos bonav, that his master is chayiv to give mizonos, to give food to his sons. Kayotze b'davar ata omer, similarly we say, Imbal ishahu v'yotze ishto imo, it says if he's a person who has a wife, his wife leaves the avdus together with him. And again, the same idea, Amar Rabbi Shimon says, Imhu nimkar ishto mi nimkar, if he was sold, was his wife sold? Why is she leaving with him if she was never an Eved? Mikan sharabo chayiv b'mizonos ishto, from here we see that his master is chayiv in the mizonos of his wife. And the Gemara says, Utzricha, and we need both teachings. We need to say that the master is chayiv in the mizonos of his children, and we also need to say that the master is chayiv in the mizonos of his wife. If we talked about his sons, that's because they're not able to do work and therefore eat. In other words, they can't do anything in exchange. But when it comes to his wife, that she's able to eat and then she's able also to do work. So I might say that she has to work in order to get the food, in order to be given mizonos, and therefore we're saying no, that she's supported even without working. And if we only taught by his wife, it's not her way to go around and knock on doors and beg for food. That's why she needs to be supported. But his children, that it's the way of the children to go around and beg for food. So I might say it's not true. Maybe you don't have to support them. So tzricha, that's why it's necessary to say both. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chav Beis Amud Beis.